Welcome to Uncovered Biblical History and Traditions, the channel dedicated to lost stories of the biblical past. Discover stories of pre-Christian historical roots, biblical legends, lost church history and forgotten historical characters of faith. It is very helpful if you hit the like, subscribe and share. Help build my channel and let's take a look together into these uncovered forgotten tales. What if everything you thought you knew about British history was just another chapter of a much longer story? Imagine discovering that the British people aren't just a collection of tribes who happened to settle an island, but are in fact the heirs to an ancient covenant, the journey spanning thousands of years and tracing back to biblical times. Today on Uncovered Biblical History and Traditions we explore the controversial and fascinating story that connects the ancient Druids to Hebrew practices, that suggests Stonehenge was built by a patriarch who lived at the same time as Abraham, and proposes that the very name, British, carries within it a royal lineage dating back to the kings of ancient Israel. When most people think of British, they typically think of England and Wales. This singular identification isn't merely curious, it's a clue that points to ancient bonds formed between these peoples that run far deeper than modern political designations. The foundational ties that unified these ancient peoples were twofold: language and religion. Cymric served as the mother tongue, creating a common linguistic heritage that preserved traditions across generations. Meanwhile, Druidic practices and beliefs provided a unified system of worship with shared rituals and ceremonies that bound the population together. What's particularly striking is Britain's role as the central authority for the entire Celtic world. This wasn't just a remote island on the edge of Europe, it was the beating heart of an ancient civilization. Think of Britain's relationship to the Celtic world as analogous to modern political centers, London's relationship to Great Britain, Ottawa's to Canada, or Washington's to the United States. Britain wasn't just politically significant, it was commercially and industrially renowned, with economic influence stretching throughout all Celtic territories. Most importantly, it served as the religious authority center, the central headquarters of all druidism, a place to which all Celtic peoples paid tithe, and the source of religious leadership. The chronological primacy of England within the British Isles adds another fascinating layer to this story. England was the first territory to be settled among the British Isles, with evidence showing the arrival of the first settlers around 3000 BCE. Remarkably, these lands were previously uninhabited, virgin land before the Celtic arrival. This timing entitled England by priority to the British name, Covenant people, giving it both a chronological claim to the title and establishing its religious significance as the first settled territory. Another important story of these Covenant people was that around 1800 BCE, a pivotal figure emerged who would forever shape the destiny of these people. His name was Hu Gadarn, and under his leadership, the national structuring of what would become the British people took form. This period coincided with the erection of Stonehenge, which many attribute to Hu Gadarn himself. Known as Hu the Mighty, among his people, he served as the chief patriarch during a time that paralleled the biblical Abraham. Druidism itself had defining practices and prohibitions that reveal unexpected connections to Hebrew traditions. There were strict scriptural restrictions, including a commandment against committing religious matters to writing and a strong reliance on oral tradition. Construction restrictions prohibited using metal in altar building and forbade the use of nails in sacred structures. These practices bear a remarkable similarity to biblical instructions for altar building. Perhaps most intriguing is the theological identification within Druidism. Connections to biblical prophecy and self-identification with biblical narratives suggest these weren't merely parallel developments but potentially intertwined traditions. The migration patterns of the Celtic people reveal even more surprising connections. As they moved toward the British Isles, they brought with them distinctive customs that echo Hebrew practices. They maintained a stone altar construction tradition, building altars at resting places during their migration, creating permanent markers of their journey, and establishing physical evidence of their passage across lands. The religious symbolism during these journeys is particularly noteworthy. Some stories say that they carried what tradition describes as an Ark of the Covenant before them, in striking parallel to Hebrew migration practices. Over time, these practices evolved while maintaining their core significance. Following the acceptance of Christianity, the Ark ritual was abandoned, but the stone memorial tradition persisted. We can still see modern manifestations of these ancient practices, continued primarily among Scottish and Canadian peoples. Modern cairns, those familiar pyramidal stone structures built to commemorate historic events, stand as the continuation of ancient stones of witness. These practices appear to have biblical foundations, particularly in the precedents set by Jacob, who erected the first biblical stone altar after his ladder dream as a witness to divine contact and covenant. For both the wandering Hebrews and Keltoi, these stone monuments served as declarations of faith during travels through foreign lands and as witness to their belief in the one invisible God. But the most provocative connection between these seemingly disparate peoples may lie in the very names they carried throughout history. The name, Kimri, itself appears to have royal derivation, stemming from King Omri, the founder of Samaria, which served as the capital of ancient Israel. During their captivity under the Assyrians, these people were designated by various terms: Beth Omri, House of Omri, Beth Kimri, and People of the Gomri. The Greeks later called them Kimrioi. This isn't mere speculation, historical artifacts provide compelling evidence. The Black Obelisk of Shalmaneser II, currently housed in the British Museum, contains references to this captivity period and lists kings subject to Assyrian rule. The obelisk includes specific depictions, including a relief showing the son of Omri, Jehu, king of Israel, portraying his payment of tribute in gold and silver and demonstration of obeisance to Assyrian authority. The linguistic evolution of these tribal names follows a fascinating trajectory. The original pronunciation in Celtic was Comri, which developed along this path: Comri, Kimri, Kimri, Cimmerians, and further evolved into Keltoi, Celtic Cymru. Even geographical connections exist. The name, Crimea, appears to be a linguistic corruption of Cimmeri, with archaeological evidence from Crimean cemeteries and monuments identifying Cymri presence in the region. These people spent centuries in the Crimean region before eventually continuing their westward migration. Fast forward to modern times, and we find the Welsh as the preservers of this ancient Celtic identity. They are unique in their retention of the original naming, being the only group maintaining the original Cymri designation, now spelled Cymru, with their language preserved as Cymric. The cultural conservation has perpetuated ancient racial characteristics, preserving more of their heritage than any other branch of the Celtic, Saxon, Scandinavian peoples. Meanwhile, ancient England's demographic character transformed over time, evolving towards Saxon characteristics with changes in physical and cultural attributes and a diminishment of original Celtic features. This transformation was driven by successive migrations, the influx of Angles, settlement of Frisians, arrival of Jutes, and the predominance of Saxon settlers, with the Angles and Saxons becoming the most numerous groups. Despite this later diversification, these peoples shared common ancestral origins, all groups allegedly originating from the northern kingdom of Samaria under the initial leadership of the tribe of Ephraim. Over time, behavioral distinctions developed as each group acted according to their native disposition, developing distinct cultural characteristics while maintaining their shared heritage. The religious development and Christian destiny of Britain represents perhaps the most significant chapter in this extraordinary story. Proponents of this historical interpretation see divine direction in British historical development, with prophetic connections to Jeremiah's prophecy to plant the seed, and a destiny that motivated people in their journey, providing subconscious divine guidance to a predestined land. The Christian turning point came with the arrival of Joseph of Arimathea and the significance of the Bethany group, establishing an early Christian presence that would forever change the island's trajectory. This development positioned England for its unique role as the motherland, the only country naturally known by this designation, a significance that resonates throughout world history. This wasn't an accident but rather the culmination of centuries of preparation for a Christian destiny, with England serving as the womb from which the Christian cause was born. The global impact cannot be overstated. Britain became the cradle of Christian faith development and the vehicle for carrying Christianity to the world. When we examine the entirety of this historical tapestry, we're left with a provocative question: could the British people, with the unique linguistic, religious, and cultural heritage, truly be the modern descendants of the ancient Israelites? While mainstream historians might dismiss these connections as coincidental or stretch the evidence beyond credibility, the patterns of migration, linguistic evolution, religious practices, and even the very names these people carried through time present a narrative worth considering. The Covenant people have left an indelible mark on human history. If you would like more information where to research this subject, check out my other videos and pause this image and look into these resources. I hope you enjoyed this forgotten biblical story. Leave a like, comment, share and subscribe. This is very helpful. Join me next time for another lost story of our biblical history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.